Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. Jake, 34 male, and I, 32 female, have had a good marriage. We've always supported each other through life's ups and downs, and one of our shared dreams was to start a family. Unfortunately, this dream has been anything but easy to achieve. After trying to conceive naturally for 2 years, we sought medical advice and were told that it would be nearly impossible for us to have children without intervention. The news was devastating, but we leaned on each other for support. Determined to build the family we'd always dreamed of, we decided to pursue IVF. The process was harder than we expected. The hormone treatments left me physically and emotionally drained, and the constant hope followed by disappointments was exhausting. Our first IVF attempt failed, leaving us heartbroken, but still determined. We tried again, only for the second attempt to fail as well. By the end of the second round, we were both emotionally exhausted. We decided to take a break from trying. The stress had begun to take a toll on our relationship, and we agreed to focus on each other for a while before deciding on our next steps. Not long after we began to feel like ourselves again, there was an unexpected knock at the door one evening. When I opened it, a young woman stood there holding a baby girl who looked to be around 6 months old. She seemed nervous, but determined, and asked to see Jake. When Jake came to the door, his expression changed immediately. He clearly recognized her, and she wasted no time explaining why she was there. The woman, Amanda, introduced herself and said that the baby, Lily, was Jake's daughter. Hearing her say that Lily might be Jake's child felt like my world had been flipped upside down. As Amanda explained what happened, I looked at Jake, hoping for him to deny it or offer some kind of explanation. Instead, he admitted that during a bachelor party over a year ago, he had gotten drunk and slept with her. I didn't know how to process what I was hearing. My heart sank as I realized that the man that I trusted most in the world had betrayed me, even if it was a one-time mistake. Initially, I couldn't even speak. I felt tears welling up in my eyes, but fought to hold them back in front of Amanda. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break down, so I excused myself to the kitchen, pretending to grab water, but really just needing a moment to breathe. Later that night, after Amanda had left, I confronted Jake. I asked him how he could do something like this, knowing everything we had been through. We were supposed to be partners, united in our struggles to have a child, and the emotional toll it had taken on us. How could he risk our relationship over a drunken mistake? Jake apologized profusely, saying it was the biggest regret of his life. He told me he'd been overwhelmed at the time by the stress of our fertility struggles and had let his guard down during the trip. He swore that it didn't mean anything and that he hadn't even thought about Amanda since that night. While I appreciated his honesty and apology, I simply couldn't brush aside the betrayal. I told him how deeply hurt I was, not just by the act itself, but by the fact that he had kept it from me for over a year. He had let me believe we were facing our struggles together, all while hiding this enormous mistake. I questioned whether I could trust him moving forward. Jake assured me it would never happen again and begged for a chance to make things right. I decided to try to work through it, but I made it clear that our marriage wouldn't survive another betrayal. For a while, things felt strained between us. I tried to forgive, but the wound was still fresh. Just as I was beginning to feel like we were rebuilding trust, Amanda's ongoing presence in our lives brought all those feelings of betrayal back to the surface. While we were waiting for the DNA test results, Amanda began bringing Lily over to spend time with Jake. He explained that he wanted to start bonding with her in case the test confirmed she was his daughter. Watching him interact with her and Lily only deepened the pain, reminding me of the mistake that had put us in this position in the first place. Watching Jake with Lily was bittersweet. He was so natural with her, gentle, attentive, and playful. She seemed to adore him, and seeing them together brought up complicated feelings for me. On one hand, I was proud of Jake for stepping up, but on the other, I couldn't ignore how painful it was to watch him bond with a child while we were still grappling with our own struggles to start a family. Amanda, meanwhile, seemed to take every opportunity to insert herself into our lives. She often stayed to chat when dropping off or picking up Lily, and Jake told me they were discussing co-parenting arrangements. I tried to trust that this was about Lily, but it was hard not to feel sidelined. After 2 weeks of waiting, the DNA test results finally arrived. To my immense relief, the test showed that Jake was not Lily's biological father. While I was glad that Jake hadn't fathered a child outside our marriage, I was also angry that Amanda had put us through so much stress and upheaval without being absolutely certain of her claims. When confronted, Amanda admitted she had been with another man around the same time, but insisted that it was unlikely he was the father due to the timeline. She still insisted Jake is the father, and it was a mistake done in the lab with the DNA test. I was shocked with the audacity, but then she dropped another bombshell. Despite the DNA test results, she asked Jake to stay in her life as a father figure. She emphasized how much Lily had already bonded with Jake, and she said that Lily deserved a stable father figure. Jake seemed deeply affected by Amanda's request. He told me that he had bonded with Lily over the past few weeks and couldn't imagine walking away now. He felt a sense of responsibility for her, even though the DNA test proved she wasn't his biological child. He explained that Amanda's situation was difficult and that Lily deserved a stable father figure in her life. Jake said he believed stepping into this role was the right thing to do and insisted that it wouldn't change our plans for the future. Hearing this left me feeling conflicted and hurt. While I admired Jake's compassion, I couldn't understand why he was willing to take on such a significant role for a child that wasn't his. I tried to explain how I felt, reminding him of our shared struggles and the sacrifices we had made trying to have a family of our own. Amanda has made it clear that she is still sure Jake is the father. Amanda has even suggested that we could co-parent Lily together, framing it as a solution that would benefit everyone. Her suggestion felt like an overstep, especially since Jake and I hadn't agreed to take on this responsibility. I've tried to be understanding, but it's hard to see Amanda becoming such a significant presence in Jake's life, while I feel like my concerns are being brushed aside. I've told Jake how I feel about the situation, but he seems convinced that he's doing the right thing. He believes that helping Amanda and Lily won't affect our marriage, but I already feel like it has. This situation has brought up unresolved feelings about our struggles with infertility and made me question where I stand in Jake's priorities. While I understand his desire to help and be a father, I feel like he's overlooking the impact this decision is having on me and our relationship. Jake continues to spend time with Lily and Amanda, despite my discomfort. He says he's trying to do the right thing, but I feel like his actions are creating distance between us. Amanda seems content to rely on Jake and has made no effort to find the biological father or explore other options. This entire situation has left me feeling uncertain about the future. I don't want to seem unsupportive, but I also feel like this isn't the life I signed up for. Am I the a-hole for not wanting my husband to take on the role of father to a child that isn't his? Jake's intentions are good, but Amanda is taking advantage of his kindness. It's unfair for her to expect him to step into this role when the child isn't his. She should admit that he's not the father and focus on finding the biological father or figuring out how to provide stability for Lily without relying on Jake. OP's feelings are valid, and Jake needs to consider how this is affecting their marriage. Can you imagine how horrible it is to find out that your husband got another woman pregnant while you can't have kids? I honestly don't understand how OP forgave him. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Not the a-hole. This is an incredibly difficult situation, but Amanda's request is unreasonable. Jake is letting his emotions drive his decisions, but he's overlooking how this impacts you and the life you've built together. You've already made so many sacrifices in your journey to have a family, and it's not fair for Jake to take on a role that isn't his responsibility. Not the a-hole. Amanda is asking for far more than she has any right to. Jake needs to step back and focus on the family you're trying to build together. This situation isn't his responsibility, and it's unfair for you to feel like an outsider in your own marriage. He needs to set boundaries with Amanda and prioritize your relationship. Not the a-hole. Co-parenting with Amanda would create long-term complications that Jake isn't considering right now. This is about more than just being a father figure. It's about how this will affect your relationship and your plans for the future. You're not wrong for wanting to protect your marriage and set boundaries. Update. After I told Jake how uncomfortable I was with his growing involvement in Amanda and Lily's lives, I hoped he would take a step back and prioritize our marriage. Instead, he became more defensive and distant. He started spending even more time with them, claiming it was all for Lily's sake. Every time I tried to express my feelings, he would reassure me that his actions wouldn't affect our marriage, but his reassurances felt hollow. The cracks in our relationship became more obvious. We started arguing frequently, and it felt like we were living completely separate lives. Jake was physically present, but emotionally, he was elsewhere, specifically with Amanda and Lily. One night, Jake sat me down and told me that he couldn't keep living like this. He said he felt a deep connection to Lily and Amanda, and that he believed his purpose was to be a father to Lily. He admitted that his feelings for Amanda had grown stronger over the past few months, and he didn't think it was fair to either of us to continue the marriage. Hearing those words was like a dagger to my heart. I felt betrayed all over again, not just by his initial mistake, but by the fact that he allowed himself to develop feelings for Amanda while still being married to me. He told me he didn't plan for any of this to happen, but he couldn't deny his feelings any longer. He packed a bag that night and left. I watched him walk out the door, knowing he was going to Amanda. It felt like the life we had built together, the dreams, the struggles, the love, was crumbling before my eyes. I won't sugarcoat it. I'm broken. I've spent so much time questioning what I did wrong, wondering if I could have done something to save our marriage. But deep down, I know this isn't my fault. Jake made his choices, and those choices led him away from me. I really appreciate your advice and support. My daughters are 19 and 16. My oldest daughter, 19, was a varsity athlete, straight-A student, 35 ACT. She got into a good private college but is taking a gap year. Her college fund is secured because her father, who I never married, is paying for the entirety of it. I was married to my youngest daughter's father for 10 years before he died, and I've had to save for her college fund on my own. When my oldest daughter was 15, she was arrested for riding off with a seller's bike while claiming to test ride it. I thought she bought it with babysitting money until about 2 weeks later when police showed up. I ended up spending a lot of money on a lawyer that successfully negotiated the situation so it could be handled civilly. She's cleaned up since then and had this new lease on life. But because she's been working with unreliable coworkers in a barely supervised store, she's now in the middle of a missing money and inventory situation. She got fired, and then an officer called to question her. She promises me she wasn't the culprit. I called up a lawyer. He calls the detective on our behalf and tells us that this is serious. I know that a charge like this would ruin her life, but the lawyer has a track record of successfully resolving these types of cases. He asked for a $5,000 retainer. The only place where I have that kind of money is in the fund earmarked for my younger daughter's college. The money coming from my 19-year-old's father is to be used only for education purposes. So I ended up getting the $5,000 for the retainer and giving it to the lawyer. But now, just from the amount of time my daughter spends on the phone with her lawyer, I can tell that we're probably going to be out at least $10,000. When my younger daughter found out that it was coming from her college fund, she started screaming at both of us. She yelled, "Stop calling your lawyer so much," at her sister. Am I the a-hole? I will try my hardest to replace my daughter's college fund. There's around $20,000 in the fund. But I couldn't just let my oldest daughter drown. It's well known that people with poor or no legal representation go to jail. Yes, the a-hole. You and your oldest daughter are a-holes. Why isn't your oldest daughter responsible for taking out a loan to pay her lawyer? She's an adult. Why isn't she responsible for putting the money back in her sister's college fund? She's an adult. And why bring up her history of sticky fingers at all, unless you assume she did the crime? Yes, the a-hole. Stop bailing out your eldest, and maybe she'll stop ducking up. Do you think the store doesn't have cameras? Come on. Good odds your kid did the deed, and you're gullible as hell, and throwing away your younger daughter's future so the elder can duck up again. Yes, the a-hole. You are essentially stealing from your youngest daughter. It isn't fair to her that the oldest sister gets into trouble, and the money used to bail her out is the money designated for her education. And you used an expensive lawyer, too. This sucks. My cousin-in-law, Stella, has been obsessed with having the first great-grandchild in our family ever since she married my cousin 5 years ago. When her daughter was born, she was constantly going on and on about how she was my grandfather's first great-grandchild and how her daughter was the family legacy. It was annoying, but her daughter is adorable, so we all sucked it up and humored her. Well, 3 months ago, my older brother, who was my grandfather's golden boy, found out he had a son. Without going into too much detail, my brother met Kiera while he was at a very low point in his life and was taking a break, i.e. hiding away, from life, our family. He gave her a fake backstory and name, so when he left, She had no way to contact him to let him know she was pregnant. It took her until 3 months ago to finally get in touch with him. This has caused a whole scandal in my family because my brother is the last person anyone would think accidentally fathered a child. My cousins all thought this would knock him off the golden boy pedestal, but my grandfather was worried my brother would never have kids, so this has had the opposite effect. From what my cousin, Stella's sister-in-law, has told me, Stella was fuming when she found out because my nephew is 2 months older than her daughter, making him the first great-grandchild. My brother is trying to convince Kiara to relocate to our city, so when she brought their son, our family could meet him. We were all on our best behavior. Stella hated it. She kept complaining everyone was treating my nephew better than they had ever treated her daughter, and she started accusing my grandfather of being misogynistic. After the 3rd day of her complaining, I told her to stop being a bitter cow because her daughter was no longer the first great-grandchild. She since told everyone what I said, and my aunt scolded me for being insensitive and basically made this whole thing about Stella and how hard this was for her. My cousin also sent a long message which essentially said I was an insensitive a-hole. Am I the a-hole? You were doing fine, right up to the word cow. Between your cousin's silliness and your rudeness, everyone sucks here. Everyone sucks here. This is a ridiculous tradition based on birth order, and it is always really gross when people worry about their inheritance. Stella is a jerk for crowing about how her baby was the first, and now crying that it isn't true. You're the a-hole for the way you chose to speak to her. Your brother, the golden child, is the biggest a-hole in this story for giving a false name and now trying to get this woman to relocate to him rather than maybe relocating to be closer to her. Even without the relocating part, your brother is a gigantic a-hole. Everyone sucks here. Your brother put the, now, mother of his child in a difficult position by not being honest with her about who he was. Stella's complaints were poorly timed, though they may be legitimate. Yes, the a-hole for calling her a bitter cow. It's just rude and added fuel to the fire. I got married 2 weeks ago to my husband. He's the love of my life. We've been together for 5 years. It was a small ceremony. It wasn't entirely traditional, but it was mostly per his culture. The reception was small, 30 people, but more Western. Neither my husband or I care much about the wedding. We wanted to spend our lives together and have plans, and that means a legal agreement is necessary. And the cultural ceremony was a big deal to his traditional mother. It was not a Western wedding, so there were no best mans or maid of honors or anything. I invited some family and friends, as did he. The way my husband and I met is a little embarrassing. It's funny in the way a lot of embarrassing stories can be years later, but I'm uncomfortable talking about it with people I'm not close with, and the nature of our encounter means his family didn't know how we met exactly. They would frown upon it, but I'm not ashamed of it, but I am embarrassed about it. One of my friends joked they'd talk about how we met in their speech. I said that I, 1, didn't want any wedding speeches except by the fathers, as per the ceremony's cultural traditions, and 2, I hated talking about how we met in public. My friend knows this. I have shut down their attempt to talk about it with people I'm not close with before. They also know his parents and family don't know how we really met. During the more Western-style reception, my friend had the music stopped, clinked their glasses, and gave a speech talking about how we met. My parents are laid back and didn't care. My father already knew, and his father, who was also laid back, managed to calm down his very traditional conservative mother, who was furious, and my husband has been scolded by and has had to stop her from scolding me. Our siblings are our age and didn't care, but extended and older family was not happy about it. It was a scene. The room literally fell completely silent while my friend spoke. I was very angry. I asked them to immediately leave, had them escorted when they didn't, and the reception was cut short because of the mood change. I haven't spoken to my friend since the day after, when I explained in tears how hurt I was. I did not receive an apology, and I haven't spoken to them since. Other friends were on my side at first, but it's been almost 3 weeks since the incident, and even they are telling me to forgive at this point. I don't know if I ever will. They say I have a right to be hurt, but that I'm overreacting and going too far with it, and that these kinds of embarrassing stories are told all the time at wedding receptions. I think I communicated clearly what I didn't want, and my discomfort about the topic was clear before we ever even decided to get married. Am I the a-hole? Info. Can you tell us the story of how you met? I'm just really curious. I'd prefer not to get specific. We met in a local BDSM scene, and my friend told the exact story in explicit, disgusting detail. Hopefully that gives some idea of how scandalous it was. Not the a-hole. 1. You told your friend several times to not talk about this. 2. A wedding ceremony is not the time nor the place to reveal such info. 3. Your friend has not apologized. Had they apologized, I may retract this point, but they haven't, so you being mad still is justified. Not the a-hole. They knew your feelings before, brought it up, you reiterated, and they still did it. Not to mention, they understood how some people might react. Your former friend is the a-hole. Oh my God, I thought y'all met on Tinder or something similar, not a S-club. What the duck was your friend thinking? That was completely intentionally meant to humiliate you. Everyone knows that's a completely inappropriate story to tell at a wedding. Even if you hadn't told your friend not to say anything, you shouldn't have even needed to do that because it's so obvious. Honestly, I'd never speak to them again. That's ducking horrific. I, 36 male, am having an issue with my wife's, 34 female, family, and I've basically been told by my wife to butt out. I'm an HVAC tech by trade and stopped working last year to take care of our newborn, since my wife is a high-level manager at a mid-sized company and didn't want to give up her career. My best friend, 36 male, is my wife's brother, and he told me about this situation. This all started after my wife gave birth and went back to work. My father-in-law and mother-in-law were making subtle jabs asking me how it feels to stay at home and let my wife make all the money. I told them it's great, because I love taking care of my son and seeing him all day. There were several instances of this behavior which came to a head last weekend when we were at my in-law's house and my mother-in-law lost her phone. I offered to call it to help her find it. When it rung, it was under the sofa cushion I was sitting on. So I pulled it and noticed my name in her contacts that was ringing was Mr. Mom. This really annoyed me, but for the sake of not ruining the afternoon, I let it go. And when my son threw a fit and wouldn't let us put him down for a nap, I told them I'd take him home and try him there. We live a 5-minute drive away. My best friend was at the house at the time, and he told me when I left with my son, my mother-in-law shook her head and said it wasn't right how I was acting like a nanny when I'm supposed to be the man of the family, and asked my wife how she can respect me when I'm living off of her money. According to my best friend, my wife's response was, well, he won't be unemployed forever. I'm sorry, what? I'm unemployed? Was she unemployed when I supported us for 8 years while she got her master's? We still live in the house I bought for us with my money from my HVAC career. We've been talking about upgrading, but we've just finished paying off my wife's student loans when she got pregnant, so we decided to keep saving. When I confronted her about it, she scolded me for interfering with her relationship with her parents, and she said she's sorry that their point of view upsets me, but they are just worried about her. I told her that if she feels like her parents do and finds it hard to respect me because I'm doing what we both agreed to, then we need to start couples counseling or try a trial separation. She told me I'm overreacting and that her parents are just old-fashioned and don't understand our relationship. Wife barely has to lift a finger around our house because she works 10 to 12-hour days half the time. I do all the cooking. When my son was doing night feedings, I did all the night feedings. I always keep the house clean. But because I'm not working, she ultimately sees me as unemployed. I'm so frustrated right now, I feel like I could visit a divorce lawyer tomorrow morning. Am I overreacting? You're not overreacting, but hear me out fully. This does not mean you should go see a divorce lawyer straight away. You're not wrong in feeling upset about the sexism you're currently facing from in-laws. They are probably old-fashioned and think it's okay to berate and try to humiliate you based off the fact that you're a stay-at-home dad. Duck their bigoted views on gender roles. You should tell your wife very clearly and seriously how upsetting and demeaning this is to you, and her acceptance of her parents' mockery is not okay. Make it clear that this is a big decision, and picking your side, she has to make in this relationship if she wants it to last. If she accepts that it's an issue, she should be the one to tell her parents not to bring the issue up and mock you at all on this. If she refuses, it's time to see a couples therapist. Not the a-hole. This is horrifying. Not only should your wife be shutting this stuff down, but she even contributed to it behind your back. Couples counseling is the bare minimum needed here. I'm so sorry you're being disrespected in this way. Not the a-hole. This is totally unacceptable. You are not unemployed. You are staying at home to care for your son as per the terms you and your wife agreed upon. Either she doesn't respect you in the way she should, or she does, but she's too cowardly to stand up to her parents. This would not be okay with me, and I would pursue couples counseling stat. I, 27 male, East Asian, have been married to my wife, 27 female, South Asian, since 2017. We have a 3-year-old daughter and a 6-month-old son. So my wife can't cook. She can do basic stuff, obviously, but she hates it. It's like a mix of fear and clumsiness. And honestly, up until we got married, I didn't cook either. Obviously, this was a problem. We eventually came to a solution. I do the cooking and she washes all the dishes before and after. I'm fine with it, she's fine with it, and we've been functioning well. My parents and in-laws came over the other day for dinner, and everyone was having a great time. That was until my mother-in-law complimented my cooking skills. My mom was a bit taken aback for some reason and asked me if I cooked, again. I informed her that I usually cook, and she just got even moodier. I brushed it off, but when my in-laws left, I caught my mother scolding my wife. About what? Well, apparently, she should be the one cooking, not me. You know why? Because she's the wife, the woman, and I'm the husband, the man. My wife stood up for herself and said that we both came to an agreement and we didn't need her input on how we made our food. I involved myself at this point and told my mom that she was being very unreasonable. My mother said that she didn't get me married to become a slave to my wife and that she was just looking out for me. I told her to get the hell out, and she left the house crying. I don't see why this is such a big deal. I don't think I'm the a-hole either, but my mom says I am. My dad is on her side just because she's his wife, but he says that I wasn't wrong for defending my wife, just for swearing at my mom. My wife is over it and wants to apologize just so we can move on, but I don't think we should, considering we didn't do anything wrong. So am I the a-hole in this situation? Not the a-hole. Nice job defending your wife. Do not apologize. It makes your mother think she is right. She isn't. Agreed. Not the a-hole. You have your own arrangements with your wife, and it works perfectly. Your mom has no business getting involved in how you guys decide to do things. Not the a-hole. Man, not at all. Major respect from my side. You did such a good thing by defending your wife and simultaneously rejecting the traditional gender roles of the Asian community. I'm South Asian, Indian as well. Well done, dude. There's no need to apologize to your family for saying the correct thing and getting your mom out of that situation where her sexist remarks, especially being a slave to the wife, was clearly hurting your marriage.